Alright, this is going to be what I'll be reading in July. And those of you who are, like, have a good eye for, noticing things in the background, you'll notice that some of them are missing, or some of them have been replaced. So if you, you really know how my shelf looked, you'll be like, oh, that must be because you're reading these few books, and you'd be right. I have to put them in. I probably should have described them for my imagecomics shelf, which I might just do right now and then do another cut. But essentially that's what I do. I put them in as placeholders, whatever books I can grab as placeholders. But without further ado, let's get into it. First up is ones that I still have not finished. One of them is kind of like I think I still should. No, I still should have been able to finish it. In fact, today should have been the last day of it, but I'm only one day behind. And honestly, I might just finish it tonight. So, and I'm recording on the 30th of June, so it might not end up being a July book, but this is Watchmen. I'm on issue 11 of 12, is why I say that. Like I said before, every time I reread Watchmen, I want to reread it in a different format. The first time I decided to do it, I read it in the standard size hardcover format. I wanted the deluxe edition, but I didn't get that. Then I read the Absolute, and now we're on the deluxe edition. Next time, it'll probably end up being just a soft cover, like the standard size soft cover, and then maybe after that, I'll cave in and either purchase the compact comics edition, or if the library has it, get it through there. But I don't know about that. But Watchmen. One I've read several times over. I think I honestly, I think you really can't call yourself a comics fan if you have at least. You can't call yourself a comics fan if you've not read that at least once. And a comics fan over the age of 15, I would say. Watchmen, while it is suggested for mature readers, it's really just a tone of the story that makes it for older audiences. Yeah, it has very brief nudity, and it's not really that detailed either, so it's not like that to write home about. And it's just Dr. Manhattan. And the worst word they use is shit. They don't say there's no F words, because back in 1985 they were already pushing the envelope with what they were writing. So to have an uncensored F bomb even once probably would have been too much. So while it definitely I would not want a PG-13 Watchmen, it would be a soft R if it were made into a movie. But then, of course, the nudity would make it a harder R, a slightly harsher R. That's why the Zack Snyder movie adds more language, harsher language to it. But anyways, Athanasia, I think this one is. This one's taking forever to read. This next one is Athanasia, and this one has taken me forever to read, and that's mostly because of how long this book is. And I have started reading it. It's pretty good so far. I didn't know what it was going to be about, so it's interesting. But even going by chapter, this is all one. Here, go this way. This is all one chapter. For those of you who don't know, this is what's referred to as an original graphic novel, which means it was not previously collected in a single issue format, and thus someone like me feels the need to have to read it all at once. But this thick a book, I cannot bring myself to read all in one sitting. Hell, I'm only halfway through the first chapter, and even that was too much for me to read. And I was like, that's enough. We'll put a pin on it and then continue it tomorrow. But I'll probably do half of one chapter per day. 3 chapters, so 6 days. It is good, but it's just if this were the autumnal, which is also written by Daniel Kraus, then I'd probably be more inclined to read it all in one sitting, or not all in sitting, but per chapter. But this one does not have the same pacing as autumnal did. Honestly, going by first read standards, definitely would have read the autumnal. I had no problem reading the autumnal in that 80. I want to say it's 80 pages per chapter. 80 pages per chapter. Doing it that way, like three chapters per day. 3 chapters per day. 3 chapters, 1 chapter per day for 3 chapters. Run the Dungeon by Patrick Kindlin. This one took forever to come in. I don't know if I showed this one off already. I don't believe I did. No, I couldn't have. This one took forever to come in. Now, what happened was it just kept getting rejected, even though it said this is a London library that has it. I'm pretty sure it's the yeah, I guess it's the same exact one. And there's the London library is like, yeah, we have it in stock, but we can't lend it. Or I don't think that was the case. I think it was just they maybe lost the book and they finally found the book. I have no idea, but I finally have it in my hands, and I'll finally be able to finish this series that I'm liking so far. A little bit disjointed so far, the way that is written, but this just goes to show that it's my first Patrick Kinnan book. So maybe it's the way he does. Maybe that's the way he does write. Maybe that's just the way he writes. And then I will try my best to finish Lone Wolf and Cub. So far, it's every manga for me. I just do not like manga. I do not know what it is. Like, no matter what, it always has that same, I guess, flavor is the best way to describe it. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's kind of like how everyone raves about. I don't know about food. I can't make the food analogy, allegory, whatever the hell you want to call it. I don't know. It's just not my thing. Kind of, I guess you could say, kind of like how not a lot of people like A24 movies, or there's a select group of people that don't like A24 movies, and they don't know what it is, and they don't know what it is, and it's just they can't get into it. And that's kind of how I feel about manga. I can't get into manga. Will I finish this behemoth of a hardcover? Maybe. I don't know. But I'm going to try and push myself to read 2 chapters per day, so I finish this in 8 days rather than 16. Although if I want to get this finished by Monday, I'm going to have to do more than that, a couple days here. But what I'll probably do is get one more chapter today and then decide if I want to keep reading it. And I guess I should push myself to read more tomorrow, because otherwise it's a June book. But Lone Wolf and Cub. So that is pretty much it for the ones that I was like, oh, is it June or July? But confirmed, the rest of this pile is all July reads. Starting with, now the first 17 or so I'm not going to add any more, am I? No, I was going to add one more, but I don't think I'm going to do that. But the first one up, so the first 17 are the ones I'm going to read the first week. Because this is July 4th weekend, I'm kind of like to do my 25 comics per day. That's probably not the best idea. So instead, I'm going to do 17, because that I can manage even if I have things going on. Now, they'll be all I read is 17, they'll be all I do, too, other than whatever, like if I hang out outside, if we have people over and I'm hanging out with them. And then the last book I read, 17th book, is right before I go to bed, because, hanging out there for 3 hours, and then that eats into my reading time. So be it. But 17 is manageable. 15 is best, but 17 is like, well, if I have more time in my hands today, why not do 17? So the first 17 are starting with A Haunted Girl. This one is one I do own. I know it's such a lot, but it was kind of funny. I was like, hey, the library has it. Why not get the library's copy? It saves me from having to break that binding, I don't know why, but a lot of my books that I've been getting recently, a lot of the books I've been reading recently, yeah, I've reread for the 70th time, but the binding is, I don't know if I have any of the books that are like this that I can show off right now, but the binding is starting to show its wear. Not to an extreme sense, but to the sense that I'm like, yeah, I can tell that I've read this a couple times. So that's why I like to, if at least one time over, to read the library's copy. So that is the case with The Haunted Girl. And this is my first time reading this series, but still, why not do it? Now, it's not all the time. If I forget about it, it's last minute change, obviously I'm not going to do that. There actually is one book here that I could have gotten the library's copy of, but I obviously decided not to because I couldn't. Because I didn't know if I was going to be reading that right off the bat. This is written by both Ethan and Naomi Sachs. I've read some of what Ethan Sachs has written. I think it's just a Star Wars series, and that was it. And I liked what I read. Can't remember anything from it because it was so long ago, but I do remember enjoying it enough. I wasn't anything that wowed me, but I enjoyed it enough. But A Haunted Girl seems to be his magnum opus of sorts. Because I'm reading A Haunted Girl, I decided to also read his other Image comic series, which still, to this day, has no trade paperback release scheduled or solicited, even though we have all 5 issues of Dark Honor. Now, this book is written by several authors. I don't name them all. So this is, I don't usually do floppies. It's usually trade paperback or nothing. But I just don't trade paperback of Dark Honor, and I want to read Dark Honor, so I'll be reading it in floppy format. So issue 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we'll just fuck it. Goddamn thing. I know it's not gonna stay because the way I'm sitting, but like, come on. Could at least have common decency to break the laws of physics. But so the other thing I want to mention is that I can't find issue 5 now. Where's issue 5? Right there. On the floor. Okay. The other thing I want to mention is I'm going to try my best to mention if a series is how many volumes a series has, because I read it all at once. Not all at once, but I read it all in one. No, it's kind of 1 month. Now, one of them I might not, and one of them is what's the word? Not transitioning over. God damn it, what's the word? Is repeating over, not repeating over. But one of them is Manifest Destiny. I read it last month because it's 48 issues and there's only 30 days in this month. I don't want to read 2 issues per day, or some days and then I'll be 30. No, I'm just gonna read 1 per day of Manifest Destiny and then read it across 48 days. So it is repeating from last month. But other than that, I typically will read a book. Like, Philadelphia is 35 issues. I'll read 2 of it per day on the last 5 days or something like that. Especially because they don't give you all the backups for the last volume. They were good doing it for the first 4 volumes, however, many volumes that, it's not all volumes have a backup story in them. And even the second hardcover, it's only a few issues that have a backup story in them. But it's kind of weird. Like, why wouldn't you continue the story that you were doing in backups? And so I'm sitting like this, and this is fine. Why don't I just do like this? Like, do like issue 1, issue 2. This is perfect. Issue 3, issue 4. One thing is the light is glaring. And then issue 5. Why did I not do like that? No, I had to look an idiot. So this series, Dark Honor, is written by Ethan Sachs. That much I know. I don't think it's co-written by Naomi Sachs. I don't think she's one of the co-writers. There's just a lot of co-writers here. So one of the co-writers is K.S. Bruce. So it's created and written by K.S. Bruce and Brian D. Kubley, but it's adapted by Ethan Sachs. That's right, too. It's adapted by Ethan Sachs. But those hard to pronounce last names are who writes this series. But Ethan Sachs adapts it. I think because those writers are probably foreign, I imagine. But Dark Honor, yeah, still no news of a trade paperback collecting all 5 issues of this miniseries. So it was a 5-issue miniseries. It's not like, oh, the issue 6 never came out, and, they want to wait until that comes out. It's on hiatus. They'll never get, whatever. It's been canceled. Because Philadelphia's been canceled. And we should have gotten at least 36 issues so far, but we only got 35. And a trade of 31 and 35, too. Which I find especially crazy. Next series, this is 2 volumes, and this is Wolf by Ailscott. I read it before, and I really enjoyed it. Cannot wait to read it again. It definitely... A lot of Ailscott's books seem to go in a weird direction. There's one that's not The Surface. What's the book called? I have it right here. And actually, I might end up putting that one in last change. I might end up putting in change at the last minute. But I don't know if I'll change my mind or not. But that'll be like an 18. I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's 4 issues. But I still don't know if I want to do that. Push myself to read 18 per day. Like, 17 is good, but anything beyond that... Again, for what this weekend's gonna be, I don't want to do that. But maybe I will. I don't know. But Wolf, 2 volumes, 8 issues, Ales Caught. But yeah, so the change is all over the place. This one is not as much. But it is at the end a little bit. I remember at the end I was like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but I know enough of what's going on to know that it's a consistent story that's telling a concise story that's following up, but very confusing at the end, towards the end. But change was all confusing. Like I had no idea what was going on in that series. You know what? Fuck it. We'll add change in. I want to do it. So change. This is all 1 volume, and this is 4-issue miniseries. Yes, let's put it in there. And then the third Ales Caught book that I'm reading this month is another reread. So all these are rereads so far for the Ales Caught books. Now, Dark Honor and A Haunted Girl are not rereads. So I'll say if it's a reread or not. So reread, how many volumes it collects, who writes it, and then so on and so forth. Generation Gone, also written by Ales Caught. This one was chronicle, but kind of boring. Like, a chronicle was written by someone who didn't like to do a rewrite. That's essentially what Generation Gone is. It does get really interesting towards the end, but that first issue is kind of a slog to get through. I think the second issue is too. Then once the actual story gets going, it gets like interesting, but definitely not one of my favorite reads ever. But still, I say it's still worth at least one reread. If you liked Chronicle and you want more of that kind of tone for your superhero comics, I'd say this is not the worst place to go to. It reminds me a lot of Chronicle. Other than a few changes, you could argue it's a remake of Chronicle. But of course, with changes made, so it isn't a shot-for-shot remake. It definitely stands out by itself. Black Cloud is 2 volumes, 10 issues. Black Cloud is 2 volumes, 10 issues, written by Ivan Brandon and Jason Latour. So 5 issues for Generation Gone, all 1 volume. And then 4 issues for Change, all 1 volume. So 10 issues across 2 volumes for Black Cloud, written by Ivan Brandon and Jason Latour. Now this one is... I gotta get my brain to kick in. This one is... What was the whole point of Black Cloud? Come on, brain. What's the point? Come on. Oh, this one I did like, but I want to read it. It definitely is one of those books that doesn't have like the most consistent story. It definitely goes it's kind of crazy, but it's a fantasy story, and it kind of makes sense when you start reading it why it takes the approach it does to tell a story. But it is a very interesting one. It's really fast paced, at the very least. So there you go. Glitter Bomb. This is volume 1. Okay. 2 volumes, 8 issues, written by Jim Zub. And this one was really damn good. I have yet to read something by Jim Zub I haven't at least thought was okay. But all of his image work is really outstanding, especially this. This one, so the 3... Well, actually, I'm doing all 3 this month, so we'll get to that when we get to that. But this one is about, like, Hollywood and everything like that. I think it does a really good job of explaining the downside of Hollywood without being too preachy. It's very hard not to do that, especially with recent events. It's very hard not to make it sound like a lecture or like, oh, we're being so topical, and then it's just not that at all. But Jim Zub's Glitter Bomb, the Superstar. The Empty Zone, which is 2 volumes, 10 issues. This is written by the artist of Philadelphia, Jason Sean Alexander. But this one is also kind of all over the place, but each time I read it, I understand a little bit more. I cannot say the same about Black Cloud. I've read Black Cloud twice now, going on a 3rd time, same with Empty Zone, but I cannot say that I've understood more what was going on in Black Cloud. Maybe a little bit more. So far we all rereads, obviously, because that's the way I was talking about them. But this one is one I'm reading for the first time ever, and this is Roddy Barnes's Monarch. And I decided this month when I'm reading Philadelphia to read all of his image work at once. So there we are. And one of them was Monarch, which I have not read yet. And I am eager to check this one out. And it's 1 volume, 6 issues, right? Is it 6 or 5 issues? 6. Okay, so 6-issue miniseries. Nita Ha's Nightmare Blog is 2 volumes, 12 issues. Not 10 like I thought the first time. This is my 3rd time reading this series, and I really like this. Honestly, now that I've read Philadelphia, which is a sister series to this, like they will talk to one another, because Nita Ha appears in Philadelphia. And even with Nita Ha's Nightmare Blog, she makes a reference to Philadelphia and the events taking place in that comic. Now, do you need to have read Philadelphia beforehand? Absolutely not. This is what I read before Philadelphia, and you can do that just fine. There's only a few mentions, and it does pay off when you read Philadelphia. It definitely did for me, but you can read one before the other. You don't have to read them at the same time. Now, I will be reading them at the same time, but you don't have to do that. But this, again, I thought was much, much, much better than Philadelphia. Everything that I had, the last complaint I had with Philadelphia is non-existent here. And again, Rodney Barnes. Now, I didn't hate Philadelphia. I just thought it was not as good as Nita Ha's Nightmare Blog, but still good in its own right. On Earth is 2 volumes, 10 issues, written by Cullen Bunn, who was one of the most underrated writers in my opinion. I think he gets way too much flack for things that like this Venom series apparently not a lot of people like. But no one talks about his Magneto series. No one talks about his indie work except for Hero County, and it's a damn shame because Unearthed is pretty damn good. It's not perfect. It definitely is a kind of middle-of-the-road kind of book, but it's also, for what it is, a very investing read, too. And one that I always am eager to reread time and time again. Regression is 15 issues across 3 volumes, also written by Cullen Bunn, and this one is definitely, of the 3 of his horror work, probably the most critically acclaimed, and for a good reason. It definitely is worthy of its praise. It definitely has a lot more going on than something like Unearthed or the next book. The next book, I would argue, is one of the best miniseries ever, because it tells the story in 5 issues, and like I don't think I need any more. And usually that's not the case. Usually I do feel like there's a lot more to tell. A little or a lot more to tell in the story, but then it does think it's only 5 issues. Now, it's not all the time. I'm going to kind of overstate what I was saying. It's not one of the best miniseries of all time, but it definitely is up there. But this is Regression, 15 issues, Cullen Bunn. So the series I was just alluding to, that's 5-issue miniseries, is Cold Spots. Also written by Cullen Bunn, 5 issues, obviously 1 volume. But this one was like really damn good atmospheric horror. So honestly, what's kind of funny is that these are different kinds of horror. On Earth is like virus horror, like it's kind of ironic. It was coming out around the time of the coronavirus, so it kind of has that like contagion virus horror. Regression is body horror, and Unearthed and Cold Spots is atmospheric horror. Now, Unearthed is Regression is, yeah, it's body horror, but it's also, I would argue, psychological horror too. So psychological / body horror for Regression, but not really. Actually, the more I'm thinking about it, because I'm thinking the hallucinations. I'm thinking, nah, it's more psychological horror. It's a shame that my bookmarks are on here. I feel like I'm missing a lot of bookmarks. So for the image books on my PC, I always use a bookmark for. Other than that, I'm more open to doing the corner bend thing, especially for a library book that already has it in there anyways. Like already has that marking anyways. So who the hell cares? Rereading the compendium of reading Paper Girls in compendium format this time. Now, when I first read it, it was the individual trades. Then it was the compendium. Then it was the oversized hardcovers. And now we're going back to reading it in compendium format. All in one, 30 issues of Paper Girls. Cannot wait to read this again. This is a damn good series. I think that's it. I don't know if I felt like there's more I need to say. Now, is this the one I had? Yep, it is. Duh, because there's only one library that had the compendium. Godoy, so obviously. Process of elimination. Now, I do own a compendium, but it's again another case of, especially because it's a softcover compendium, it's a case of why not just read the library's copy, you know? Give my copy a break for yet again. Give my copy a break. Brian K. Vaughan writes this, by the way. I don't believe I mentioned that. Brian K. Vaughan can do no wrong. Like with Colin Bunn, but less so with Brian K. Vaughan, because everyone knows that name in the comics world. And everyone has read at least one Brian K. Vaughan book that's a comic reader. But I feel like the guy can do no wrong. I have not read anything by him I haven't really liked. The aforementioned Manifest Destiny, which is written by Chris Dingus. This, again, it's 48 issues across 2 hardcovers or 8 softcover volumes. But I get the hardcover, so it's 2 hardcover volumes, 48 issues, Chris Dingus. Philadelphia is 2 hardcovers or 5 or 6? No, it's 5 volumes, right? No, sorry, 6 volumes. 6 softcover volumes, 2 hardcover volumes, and then 2 softcover volumes. Because the way that they did that, again, they were gonna make a 36 issue, but it's been canceled indefinitely. So we have an incomplete story across 6 softcover volumes, or if you want to get the hardcovers, you start out with hardcovers and you go to softcovers. But Philadelphia, Rodney Barnes. Again, I read this before for Philadelphia. I thought it was really good. So Manifest Destiny was also a reread. I really enjoyed Manifest Destiny the first time I read it. But Philadelphia, I was like, yeah, not as much as Nita Hawes' Nightmare blog. Which, again, also written by Rodney Barnes. Jim Zub's Wayward and Jim Zub's Skull Kickers. When I decide to reread one of these, I read them all. It's all or nothing for me, for Jim Zub's work. Especially because he's only done 3 series for Image Comics. Now, Wayward is definitely his magnum opus, but Skull Kickers is good in its own right, and so is Glitter Bomb. Now, Wayward and Skull Kickers are both 3 hardcover volumes, but Wayward is 30 issues, Skull Kickers is, I believe, 34? It's definitely over 30. So again, like with Philadelphia, I'll have to read 2 of that per day for a few days here. But Skull Kickers is definitely, you can probably tell it's Dungeons and Dragons coded with its fantasy elements. Definitely has that vibe, and no doubt there. And then Wayward is a supernatural fantasy book. There's supernatural in general. I almost said supernatural horror. I was like, wait, no, again, that's not what it is. So that is all the ones that I'll be reading for this week. But as I finish them, I'll be adding in some to make it 25. Actually, it's going to be 26 per day. But let's get on with those. Now, I decided, because I want to push it as far forward as I can, that the ones that are library books, I want to make that the most of what I'll be reading next week. Mainly because it looks like next week is going to be a much better weather week than this week will. It's going to be scorching hot this week. And I'm not going to be, if I'm outside, I'm not going to be reading. Definitely not. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to be forced to be outside next week or whatever, I'll bring some books out with me. So, and then, because again, I'm very OCD about my Image books. So I want to keep my books that are published by Image Comics are my PC. So I don't like bringing them outside. And that's kind of in general for my books, but especially the Image books. But anyways, first up is Flawed by Chuck Brown. This is 6 issues, and this is anything but flawed. This one I was reading, like, on average every 2 months. I broke that streak, but we're going to try and get that streak back up and running. Now, will I be reading... So after this, I'll probably start on Bitter Root, and then whatever I finish and throw in On the Stump there. But do it all at once, I kind of can't do that. But once I finish Flawed, I will definitely be getting on Bitterroot, and then probably by then I'll be able to add in Unstuck too. I don't want it to be 25 books or too long. 4 days is, it's looking like it's gonna be 4 days. There's a lot of these. Some of these are 4-issue miniseries, and it's like 5 of them are 4-issue miniseries. So I kind of can't do more than that. But maybe on the 5th day I'll try and do 25 again. But I really want to try and get that 25 comics per day to be at as low as it can, but also be as satisfying as it can. And I think 5 is a perfect number for me. 4 if I have to, but 5 seems to be the perfect number. Next one up is Moonstruck by Grace Ellis. I definitely should have read this month, as a recording this month, so for June, for Pride Month. But I didn't, I kind of forgot about the series. But this is really good. This is also a reread. I enjoyed it, for what it is. It's not going to win anyone over who isn't already a fan of these types of books. But someone like me who really likes Lumberjanes and Ms. Marvel, it tickled that funny bone. Tickled that bone in the body, I guess I'd say. It's tickled the funny bone, it's not what it's going to be. But it did it for me in that sense. 3 volumes, which I have all of it right here. Because again, it's a library, so I have to get all 3 volumes at once. And it's 17 issues. Now, the last volume, I believe it was an OGN, because there was only 12 issues that were released. And then the last volume, it was an OGN. But it still goes by chapters. So that's how I'm gonna read it. Oh, I gotta add in one more series. Wait, so did I do that for the other one? Because there's another one I have to do it for. Maybe it's back to back. I think you're good so far. Yeah, Grace Ellis, Moonstruck. It has nothing to do... Obviously, if you know your stuff, it has nothing to do with that movie. By Cher. That Cher stars. That old 80s movie. Now, I thought it was just okay. But I definitely need to rewatch that one again. So next up is Eternal Empire. 2 volumes, 10 issues. Library did not have the series, so I had to get my set to just... I'll read my copy. Written by Sarah Vaughn. And tagline co-written by Jonathan Luna, but really just written by Sarah Vaughn. I've always headcanoned... It was always headcanon for me that it was Sarah Vaughn that wrote it. 32 minutes so far, okay. And the next series, also written by Sarah Vaughn, is Alex plus Ada. 3-volume series, 15 issues. Time will tell if it has been too short a time in between rereads, because I kind of feel like it has been, but I wanted to read it again. And it was one of those decisions I made. And then once I made it, I was like, yeah, do we really need to read this one so soon after? But I really like this series, and same with Eternal Empire, so I don't mind to rereading it. At least time will tell if that's the case. So yeah, 15 issues across 3 volumes, Sarah Vaughn. Alex plus Ada. This next one is 2 volumes. Unfortunately, I don't have a 2nd volume. So the library, my local library, my home-based library, did have this entire series. But they're just getting rid of books for no reason. I don't understand it. But let's get rid of it. Maybe there's not a whole lot. I have 2 theories. One is that it just did fall apart. Like the person I was reading, the last person that read it, it fell apart. Like, well, we're not going to get a replacement, so let's get rid of it. Or in between getting a replacement and having the original copy that we don't want to give to other patrons and have it be in worse condition. And so we'll just take it off our shelves. But then the most plausible reason for me is that no one was reading it, so they decided to get rid of it. Which is a shame, because this is a really good series. The 2nd volume, it looked like they had it at another library, but I'll have to wait a little bit to get it, because it's not it's the other catalog. If you heard about me talk about the books I get from the library in the catalogs or interloan libraries, you'll know that one is great, one is not. The one that's not as great is what I'm waiting on the 2nd volume for. But Sarah Vaughn, Sleepless. 2 volumes, 11 issues. I'll probably just end up reading volume 2, and then it's my copy. I have no real problem with that. Now, for this next series, we're almost done, by the way. For this next series, I wanted to read it in softcover format, despite having the hardcovers, and that is Skyward. finished, I gotta also add in another book. That was the one I had to add in. It's right here. How convenient. That, I don't know why that's there. That's just a pain in the ass to have that there. It's a floppy with no comic in it. I mean, it's good if I need it, but completely useless to have it where it was. I must have been what had happened is I put it on my shelf after I taking it out of its Mylar, and then I never put the Mylar away. I don't know. So what I do for books on my PC, if I'm going on a trip, recently what I've been doing is putting them in Mylar. Especially they're thin trade paperbacks like this, I can fit in there just fine. There's no problem. But hardcovers I kind of have to just do without. And then something like the Paper Girls Compendium, I'll just have to have it without a floppy, obviously. But again, super OCD with the books in my collection, especially books from Image, because those are mostly books I'm collecting nowadays. That's from the same publisher. I don't tend to do multi-publisher purchases. I just do one and done, and it's Image Comics. There's plenty for me to, like, if you want superhero books, there's plenty of superhero books from Image. Horror, there's plenty. Fantasy, there's plenty. It's just like, why not? But anyways, Skyward. Going back to Skyward. Joe Henderson writes this series. So I did previously... So when I first read it, it was in softcover format. And I believe it's the same exact copy, too. Actually, no, one of these isn't, because it's not all the same library. Although it still might be. I don't know. But anyways, I read it all in this softcover format. Second time I read it was in hardcover format. In fact, the hardcover comes with an epilogue. So when I finish this series, I gotta get the hardcover out and then read that 2-page epilogue. But I decided to read this series in softcover format this time around. Kind of a Watchmen situation, I guess you could say. And then also we have Shadecraft, also written by Joe Henderson. Again, if it's two volumes, I mean, it's 2 volumes. If it's 2 series the guy has done, and they're not, there's like one's, regardless of how many issues one is and one isn't. Like, this is 15 issues across 3 volumes, and this is 5 issues, right? Yes, this is 5 issues across 1 volume. So that's 20 issues total. There's no reason why I can't read it at the same time. So there you go. Skyward, 3 volumes, 15 issues. And then Shadecraft, 1 volume, 5 issues. And then both are written by Joe Henderson. And it looks like it's the same exact creative team, too. Yeah, same exact creative team. That's kind of funny. Way to make yourself consistent. Next one up is Twig. This one I was going to read this month, but I decided against it at the last minute and then traded it out for something else. So we'll be reading it next month. 5 issues across 1 volume, written by Scotty Young. Now, what's kind of funny is that I read this around the time that I last read Middle West, but I remember so much more from Middle West than I do with this series. Hence the reread. So my rereads following the 3 criteria. I'll mention this yet again, because again, everyone's video is someone's first video of mine. Everyone's comic is someone's first comic. So I should reiterate certain things about this channel, about how I am with reading comics and all that. That's relevant to this video. Now, rereads fall into 3 criteria. Reread because I really liked it, like with Skyward, Wayward, and so on and so forth. And then it's reread because I want to reread to redeem. You could technically say that's the case with Philadelphia, because I wasn't super crazy about it, but I was super crazy about Nina Ha's Nightmare blog, so it's one of those things where I'm like, well, maybe a reread's in order. And then third is a reread to refresh or redeem. Now, this one is a refresh. Sorry, no. Reread to refresh or... No, that's reread to refresh, sorry. Not reread to refresh, redeem. It's just reread to refresh. So the second one is reread to redeem, like with Philadelphia. And then third is reread to refresh. So books like Twig I don't remember a whole lot what happened. Or books like Scalped I want to read again. And then books like Scalped I want to read again because the library finally has the entire series. But I want to refresh my memory as to what came before. So I read the volumes out before. Speaking of which, it's been so long since I've read Scalped and Preacher. So I start back in the beginning for Scalped. Preacher, no, because I've read Preacher so many times that I can take breaks like this. But this month so far, I wanted to focus on image books. I wanted to at least be 25 at one time for at least, again, 4 to 5 days. That's what I wanted to do at the end of this month. Couldn't, because I had a doctor's appointment in 2 days, and one of them was my pupils been dilated. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I don't know how long it's going to last, so let's read before, and after the fact, I want to read so you can see again, fine, but I did not want to add in 25 books per day, so I decided against that, and instead decided to do what I did now, and then just do the 25 comics per day in July, and then have the image books. So, Twig, Scotty Young, 5 volumes across one. 5 issues, goddammit. 5 issues across 1 volume. And then the last, 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. The last 5 are all the same series of the Universal Monsters books. Now, they're all unrelated. None of them talk to one another. They're all unrelated, completely unrelated to one another. The only similarity is that they're Universal Monsters. Classic Universal Monsters. But there's new series item. So each is written by. I actually think each is agreed. No, that's not the case. I was trying to say, but I was stuttering like hell. It's like I cannot stop stuttering, and saying But I believe each story, except for 2 of them, it's a completely different creative team. So first you have Michael Walsh's, and all these are 4 issues each. 4 issues. Each is 4 issues across 1 volume. So a 4-issue miniseries. So first up we have Universal Monsters Frankenstein by Michael Walsh. And all these, but one I've read before. So far they're all really damn good. Like, I wouldn't say one is better than the other. They're just all really damn good. And I like reading them every now and then. So first up, we have Universal Monsters Frankenstein, and except for one of them, they're all, and potentially 2, they're all pretty fast-paced, too, so it's like a quick read. Then we have Faith Erin Hicks's The Mummy. Now, The Mummy is one of them that I've read before, but I think only once. The Invisible Man by James Tynion. This is one I've not read before, so I'll be reading Invisible Man for the first time ever this month. This month. As of the upload this month, July, I'll be reading Invisible Man for the first time ever. And even then, it's the second week in July. Second week in July. First full week. Because I'll be starting on Monday. Because it's 5 days, so 5 chapters of, there's a lot of series that only 5 chapters, and it adds that perfectly, which is nice. And then 1 is 4 issues. Actually, 2 are 4 issues. Okay, so next one up is Creature from the Black Lagoon Lives. This is written by Dan Waters and Ron V. Then, last but not least, we have Dracula by James Tynion. Like I said before, they're all really damn good. If I had to pick a favorite, maybe Dracula. Because just how much that one. So Dracula is a good example of one that I read before, and then reread to redeem, because I didn't really like it as much the first time. Or I didn't really like that much the first time. But then, obviously, second time was around, I really liked it. I think it was just different than how it was for Creature in the Black Lagoon Lives. So it was like, oh, well, I don't know what it was, but that is it. All the books I'll be reading this month. That's a fat stack of comics, and I need to finish up the books for June. So that, as I say, is that.